the sounds. Not that there's anything special about the sounds, really, because they're just the pedals. But, you know, for those of you that are interested in that. So I got Brett here, masked up, and he's playing his new Les Paul. What is it, Brett? What kind of Les Paul?
It's an R8, custom shop R8.
Yeah, so pretty cool guitar. Anyway, so let's see here. So the first thing is, right now we're not using the wireless, but, you know, we come in, we're coming in from the guitar into one of the two inputs here, okay? There is, and then immediately there's a buffer switch, so you can have the buffer on. Or if you flip the wireless switch, you can use the wireless unit, and it was just one that I had. What is it? It's an AKG. It's just an AKG, one of these things. I'm assuming people can see it, and it was a rack unit, and when I open this up, I'll show you where I put it in there. I'm sure you could do this a lot smaller if you took like a line 6 unit or something like that. So, okay, so it comes in, and then then there's immediately after that, so you can choose whether you want wireless or buffer. The reason I did this was for two reasons. One is when we're playing on stage, I would usually use wireless, but if you want to have an extra guitar ready for if the wireless goes down, or you want to do a guitar switch, you could actually have two guitars plugged in on two different wires just sitting off to the side. And so you could flip the wireless switch off, and it would immediately go to those two guitars. Probably not like the greatest idea to have two guitars plugged in at once, but at least one other so that you could have a spare, okay? So then you got a master switch. Now this either defeats the entire board, and if it's on, you know, obviously now you're going through this, and in essence, this is just basically a big true bypass switch, right? With a bunch of pedals on the different loops. So if that's off, that is directly, so go ahead and play a little bit. So that is direct. Now if I hit this, we're going through the board, through all the true bypass. Now there's no effects on right now, and that's without the buffer. Now go ahead and play it, and I'll put the buffer on. So it adds a little bit of brightness. I'll click on the master with the buffer on and off, so you'll see the difference between directly into the amp and then directly through the board with the buffer on. So go ahead and just play, and I'll switch it. You'll notice there's like no noise, right? Which is not any, I take no credit. I figured there would be a bunch of noise. I got super lucky. And I'm just powering it off of literally a Boss PSA 100, which is like a 500 milliamp wall wart. I should probably get a more powerful one, which I probably will. You'll also notice that it has and when we show the back, I'll show that to you. It has another, you can daisy chain other pedals off of the board. So this, I just have a little volume expression wah, cheap little wah. I usually use a bigger wah, but for today's purposes, because this does a lot of different things. And this is just being powered off of the board. So one power. Other than the wireless unit has a different voltage, so it has its own wall wart, and that's why you'll see two electrical inputs there. Okay, so go ahead and Brett. So I'll just run through. So the very first thing that it hits is the tuner. Now the thing about the tuner is that when I was putting this together, it turns out certain Boss pedals are default off when you plug them in, meaning that there's no power to the circuit. Most of the other stuff is default on. So What that meant was that when I plug it in, I have 2 dead pedals, and without having individual switches for those pedals, which were the TU3 and the what is that? This is the flanger, the FL2, I believe. Without those on and without individual switches, it was kind of a pain. And so what I did was I created a momentary switch for those 2 that basically flips. It gives them a little jolt of power. So if you watch this light right here and this light here, if I do that, they both turn off. So what I have to do is when I power it up, I have to turn them on like that. Now everything's on, okay? Okay, so the next thing, so that's your tuner. So I'll just, obviously it's just a tuner. You're a little out of tune there, Brett.
Yes, I am. Let me hear you in tune. We'll speed this part up.
Yes. Okay. So tuner, obviously. Next in the chain is the auto wah. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. The loop. So it goes to a loop, which has a send return here. And you can put whatever you want in here. So right now I just have I can put it on wah wah here. Okay, so you could obviously put whatever the heck you want in there. And so to the question of what do you do when you wanted to add a pedal to this other than open it up and put more pedals in, you don't. You just put it here. So this is a guest pedal, basically. Okay, so after that we go to the... Oh, and so the other thing that this auto wah, what I did was recently I added a Naga Viper, a Catalan bred Naga Viper treble boost. And so I put that here, so that's this. I probably shouldn't hold that there. That's this, the boost, the range, and the heat. And that's switchable, so go ahead and I'll put it back on. Go ahead and... Now if I switch it here, now we're into the booster, the treble boost. Go ahead and play some.
Let's see. What do you play that has a treble boost?
I don't know, Deep Purple.
Which one? Let's see.
Anyway, so there's your treble boost with a little bit of fuzz on it. So, okay, so then you go into the compressor. This and the treble booster I built myself off of Tagboard, which is an awesome research source if you're into just building pedals. So I built that myself. Then the compressor is a Keeley 4-knob compressor, which again I built myself. And so go ahead and play some whatever you want to play, country or stuff. Right, so, and the other thing is obviously because it's a compressor, you could just use it as a clean boost way up front to boost into your drive pedals if you want, right? So. All right, good. Next, we go into the drive section. And so most people would say, well, why didn't you put your lower drive first and then your higher gain stuff later? And I took I decided to do it a little bit differently in the sense that Pete Cornish always says the higher gain stuff should be earlier in the chain, and then the other stuff can tone shape later. And it was really just, to be quite honest, I like to play, today we're playing my Vox, but I just like to play Marshall-y stuff with all the gain coming from the amp, so I don't really use too much, maybe a TS9. But next into the Pinnacle, which is that. And the Pinnacle is a little bit noisy when you put the boost on, like you'll hear the noise. You can see it's dead quiet without it. That could be, just because I exposed a lot of it, or it could be maybe just the nature of the pedal. That boost is quite noisy. I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say about that. And then I go into my fuzz section. Now the fuzzes I built them, and they're switchable. So the first one, if you look here, you've got this, it says Pi. So that's the big muff here. And this is a Russian, I think I did a ram's head. And I found a kit in a little shop in Akihabara, Japan, that had all Russian components and whatnot. So this is a pretty cool sound if you're into, like, Smashing Pumpkins or whatever. So. Anyway, and then you can switch it to what I call my DIY fuzz, which is a silicone, and it's a one knob fuzz, and it's over here. So go ahead and play. It's a little splatty, but I kind of like that. It's not really fuzz face. I believe I got this one off of DIY. I got the circuit from somewhere in Australia. A guy that makes some circuit boards, and I liked it. And you can experiment with different diodes and whatnot. So after the fuzz, next pedal in the chain is the Phase 90, which is right there. And that's just a Phase 90.
See, you gotta do it.
The reason that I chose that, I think the reason that I put it in this, you gotta remember this took me like a year and a half to do, so I think the reason I chose to put that there was because I figured I'm really only gonna use that, and this is pre-effects loop, but I love Van Halen, so I figured Pinnacle, the Phase 90. Anyway, so I think that's why I put that there. If I did this again, I would probably put the Phase. I still want it pre-effects loop, but I would probably put it after the TS9. And something tells me I did, but maybe my notes are bad. Okay, so next, after the Phase 90, we go into the Tube Screamer, which is these knobs. And to the extent that I could use the original knobs, I did. So, obviously that's a Phase 90 knob, MXR knob. These are Tube Screamer knobs. On some of them, for the ones that I made, I had to choose. And the reason I did all the different knobs is so that it's just, instead of doing one kind of knob, it's just, it breaks it up and makes it easier to know what I'm looking at. So, TS9, go ahead, just play. Okay, so also on this originally after that I was gonna make this a switchable between the TS9 and a Prince of Tone that I built. But I ended up just putting the Prince of Tone by itself and after this. So now I'd run out of foot switches, so this is the Prince of Tone. Go ahead and play nothing, and then this is, just play something. So, that's the Prince of Tone. And then after the Prince of Tone, everything after that can then be put through an effects loop. Right now, I don't have, this amp doesn't have an effects loop. Maybe I'll do it doesn't really matter. You get the idea. But after that, everything else is like time-based and whatnot. So, although I do have a boost. So the first thing after that is this boost. Now this boost is, if you have an effects loop, it's in the effects loop. And the reason I did that was because it's a clean boost, and I just want to raise volume for solos without getting more compression going through the preamp. And then this one, again, this is a self-built one, although I think it's called like the 7-minute boost or something like that, the 10-minute boost off of an Australian pedal maker's, or the circuit. You can make your own circuit. So this is actually a really nice kind of just clean boost, but it's switchable to dirty. So it's just these two knobs. It's the volume, and then if you switch to dirty, because I think you're going through a diode, it does drop the volume quite a bit. So you'd have to readjust. But go ahead and just play something, and I'll boost it. So yeah, the whole idea there is just for solos, so not necessarily to get compression. So I usually just leave it on clean boost, right about there, because I have so many other dirt pedals. There's no point. Okay, after the boost, we go into chorus. This is a chorus I bought a long time ago. I like it, and it's a Bryan chorus out of China. It's got, I believe it has some of the nice Bucket Brigade chips in it. So. So the chorus, I just like that chorus, and this one was mounted. I didn't take I should have probably pulled the pots, and so that I could tighten it up. But I think it was one of the first ones I put on there, and I thought that was I just mounted the board straight to the metal sheet here. So okay, so then after the chorus comes the flanger. I know some people don't like flanger, but I love flanger. Flanger, that's a Boss flanger. The tremolo, then we come over to tremolo. Now this was a Joyo pedal. It had like a bulldog or like a pit bull on the cover of it, and it's an optical one, so I like that. But I didn't like the way that it was cutting in and out, so I modded it, and I can't remember how I did this, but I mean it's just a resistor that you just have to add to the circuit, but. So go ahead and play some with tremolo. So as you can see here, you got, it's either on off, or more of a smooth sine wave sort of thing, and it lights up with it, so you can figure that out. So it's just two controls, intensity and rate. Okay. The next one is the delay, and the delay, it's a TC Electronics flashback, and so I like it. It's a good delay. The problem with the TC Electronics pedals is obviously, other than them just being digital, they're basically like little computers, and so yeah, getting that all wired in was a little bit of a little bit of work. So
why is the delay pedal there to the left of the Phase 90, for example? Why is it not more?
Oh yeah.
Because
okay.
you're kind of jumping all over.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, obviously, I want my drive pedals on the bottom so I could step on them. Things that I would probably want to add in the middle of something would be down here, right? You can't always get that. But the other thing is, you can see these 4 screws. These are the 2 TC ones, and I just had to space them out. It couldn't be right next to each other.
You couldn't separate the foot switch from the knobs, as I recall, right? They had to be in those.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's right. The foot switches, you can't take these out. TC has kind of different. See how they're super smooth. They don't have a click in them, and so yeah, you couldn't, because it's basically like taking a computer apart. So, delay. Yeah, so, and then after that, we go into reverb, which is here, and it's just, again, it's a Hall of Fame reverb. Okay, well, that sounds pretty good. And then at some point, I realized if I ever wanted to take this to a gig and like an amp dies, and you have to go through the PA system. You can just imagine you show up and you're playing and your amp goes dead and there's no other. I thought, well, to be able to go through the PA system, I need a cab sim. So again, on Tag Board, there was a Vero board cab sim that you could build, and that's switchable here. Let me turn the gain down. So it just played. Obviously, that one, without a PA system hooked up, you can't really see what it does. But you could use it as a tone shaping tool as well, sort of to EQ whatever you wanted. Other than that, I've got on here, let me see here, there's these LEDs. So what I also did was, I noticed when I was playing on stage sometimes outdoors, I couldn't see the lights. So I'll put a couple of lights on. And so what I did was I changed the resistor values so that you could make them brighter. Let me get my hand out of the way so you can see actually the T is not. So you can see how they brighten up for outdoor use. For indoor, you'd obviously want it like that. So that, yeah. And it's quite bright, so. Okay. And the other thing is that I added this. This can give you two, so you can choose your amp channels with this.
So you send like a TRS cable to the amp?
Yeah, you send a TRS cable. You can choose your amp, and then you could also. So, for instance, I've got a Black Star over here that I have used, and it has. You can switch from clean to your drive channel, and then you could also flip on your onboard reverb from here. Meaning you turn on the amp's reverb with that switch if you use a TRS cable. And then, yeah, so other than that, I think that's pretty much what we got. I'm sure I bored a bunch of people who know what tube screamers and tremolos sound like, but that's the pedal.
Right.
Okay, so obviously you have this buffer that we talked about, turning on the wireless, which works great. There's an expression pedal input, and that goes to the auto wah. So I think, we forgot to...
Forgot to do the auto wah.
That's all right. It's an auto wah. It's a Boss auto wah.
No, we already did it because we just cut it in afterwards.
That's right, yeah. So as you heard the auto wah, you can plug in an expression pedal. That's why you could use this here as an expression pedal and control the auto wah, so you don't have to have a wah. That doesn't really make sense because then you have to have an expression pedal, so you might as well just bring your wah. But it also controls all the expression pedals within here. Anything that has the ability to use an expression pedal can be controlled off of that because they're all wired into there. Now, I can't remember what...
Well, the TC ones would, right?
The TC ones, yeah. I believe the TC ones, you can use an expression pedal, so I think I wired it in. Obviously, that expression pedal would control all of them at the same time if they were all on. Mm-hmm. But if you had 2 out of the 3 off, it would just control whatever, right? There's your loop for whatever you want to put in. So I have a... sometimes I'll use this Shaky Jimmy, which is a a pretty good univibe. The problem is, and this is for those that might think that they want to build one of these, be careful when you are, if you have a positive ground effect, because I blew up that phase 90. That's like my third phase 90, I think. Because what happened was I was trying to put the Shaky Jimmy in. It's a positive ground effect. I can't remember if it's that one actually. Maybe I was doing a fuzz face, a germanium fuzz face. It was positive ground, and this was at the beginning of this, and I kept shorting and I would blow up certain pedals because of the difference between a positive ground pedal and a negative ground pedal.
And are you talking about the polarity of the plug, or are you talking about?
It's not the polarity of the plug. It's the polarity of the whole circuit, right? So what happens is, you can create a daughter board that will reverse. It has a charge pump on it and will reverse the polarity, so that you can run it on the same power. And that daughter board, if you go to tag board, it's like 3 components. It's like two capacitors and a little IC chip. Really easy to make, but the actual circuit itself though is still positive ground. So if you're going to do that, you really want to probably cover it in plastic or something, just to make sure that you're not shorting anything out. Although, for that matter, you probably want to cover a lot of things in plastic, because there are, if you're not careful, you can short out the whole thing and then try to figure out what part's shorted. That's why then you're going pedal by pedal, trying to figure out which one's dead, where it's dead, and this is why this thing took me so long. Okay, next thing over here, and can you see the whole thing?
You can, yeah.
Okay, so this FOA, this is front of amp. This is if the effects loop's on. Right now when it's off, these are your outputs, mono or stereo, and left and right. Or if you put the FX loop on, this goes front of amp, and this is your send and your return. Okay? And then that's you put your TRS amp channel switcher. That is the momentary button that allows me to turn on some of the pedals that didn't.
Why do you have two power things going in?
Oh, right. So this is the 9-volt one. This is for the main board, and then this is the wireless. And I'll open this up and I'll show you what it looks like inside.
So tell us about the box.
Oh, the box.
Where'd you get the box? Where do you get a box like that?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to live in Tokyo, and there's a place called Akihabara, which is a lot of people many of you have probably heard of it, but it's the old electronics part of town, and there's still a lot of old shops. So there's a shop that specifically does enclosures. This is a Takachi is the name of the company, and I think I posted it in.
How do you spell that?
Takachi. Takachi enclosures, and this one was the one that just worked the best. And when I bought it, I actually bought. So what I did when I was trying to lay it out, I used a cardboard template, drilled the holes, mounted the stuff to it, and then if it was like, oh, this is too close, redid it. I kept redoing it on cardboard. And the other nice thing is with these enclosures, I bought an extra piece of sheet metal. So if you ever screw up, I actually was lucky enough that I didn't. And I think it was probably $20 for an extra piece of. So if you screw up, you can. I would say if you're going to do this, I can't. If you look through the catalog, and if anybody really wants to know, I can tell you which box this is. But this was just the box that worked. That looked like this would work for me. They got a million boxes. It's an entire industry of companies that make boxes. And Takachi is the Japanese one, so that's what I...
And there's an entire store just for the boxes.
There's a few entire stores for the boxes. And I got lucky enough that this box fits right in this case exactly. Now, this is an SKB case. So this is a pretty standard pedal case, I think, that I'm sure you could get anywhere. It happens to fit right in there. With the switches, even, you just notch the foam a little bit right back here, and the switches kind of slide in there. So So it's exactly it goes to here, and then you have enough for a wah or another pedal if you wanted to have a guest pedal in there. So that's that.
Is the top of this supported underneath in any way, or is it just thick enough to
No,
not
it's
sag?
just thick enough metal. It doesn't sag at all. Yeah, it's just thick metal.
Super strong.
Yeah, super
And
strong.
how did you decide on the spacing of the switches?
I'm not a guy that plans a lot, as Brett knows from like how I DIY my house. I just kind of go. So I my general rule. Which switches? You talking about these? The foot switches? I just guessed. I mean, I just said, I think I could get 7 in there. My foot, I have small feet, so.
I mean, at some point, the guts of the pedal there's only so much space between them. I mean, right? You couldn't put an extra row on there because nothing would fit. The TC pedals, for example, are fixed width, right?
Yeah,
so they're never
those are fixed width. Yeah. So if I redid this, I could put a whole lot more in this thing. I know I could, because what I could do is, and when I open the back, I'll show you. I didn't remove the jacks for the input and output on each of the pedals. So I just left the jacks there for 2 reasons. One, I thought, well, if I ever want to tear these out, put them back in their own boxes, which I never will. That would be totally not worth my time. I could do that. The second reason was that tells me which wires are in and out. And because if you pull those jacks off, now you're just dealing with wires going into a circuit board with no labels, right? So that kind of stuff takes up space just to have those the jacks on there. The other thing is, and Brett is a pedal board maniac, and he's the one that introduced me to the pedal boards of doom. I kind of just plug my guitar right into my amp, but what I am is I hate cables, and I hate just extraneous things. That's the whole reason I built this thing, right? It was also to see what I could learn, because I knew nothing about electronics. So honestly, anybody could do this. I didn't know anything about electronics. I learned probably far less than I should have, but I at least now kind of know what a capacitor does and a resistor does and a diode does, right? If that's your whole purpose, don't do this. Just go read a book. But and then I'm also fairly, when I just set my mind to something, I just can't quit. So I actually probably ruined my eyes. Now, doing this like every night for like a year and a half. Like I started to wear those dollar store
reading glasses.
Reading glasses, yeah. And so I probably ruined my eyes, and I probably burned a ton of brain cells in solder smoke. I probably have a ton of lead in my body right now. So, but anybody can do it. You just gotta. Living in Tokyo does make it easy, because Brett and I, we can just ride 30 minutes to a store in Akihabara, a ton of stores, and maybe we'll do a video on that later, because stores just full of guitar parts, or stores full of electronics, or whatever, stores entirely devoted to just wire, right? So when I open this up and I'll go through it, I can show you what kind of wire I use to do that. So okay, so here we go. How much can you see there? So first thing first is, here's the wireless unit, and I mounted it to the back plate here, and that's the power, and that goes to, when you turn on the wireless, that goes into the unit itself. So when I take this off, I usually unplug here and unplug here. Now, I'm gonna go. So I mounted it. You can see there's these. And I don't know what they're called, but I found them in Akihabara in the electronics store, and they're these stick things. They stick on, and then you can drive a screw through it. So you don't actually have to put anything through the metal. And I did that with a lot of this. So let's see here. Is there enough light there?
Yep.
Okay. So this is what it looks like inside. I know it's kind of a mess, and people probably think, oh, that's going to be all noisy. It's less of a mess than it seems. So so as I said, I left the jacks on, as you can see here. So for instance, I can unplug this right here is a phase 90. I didn't even remove the switch on it. And I actually just I used a shielded wire. And generally, I think I used a gray colored wire, so that's all this. There were times that if I had enough space, I left it like this so I could just plug things in. Other times where, like here, these are all the jacks. This right here is that auto-wah. And as you can see, the auto-wah has like a ribbon cable. So each one of these wires I had to extend. And that's this ribbon down here, this rainbow. And that goes over to the expression. This is for the expression pedal. But what I did was I would leave the jacks. I actually pulled the jacks off the board and mounted them, and label it so it says in, out, expression, whatever. Actually, that's not the expression pedal. That's something else. But and then I would just solder directly to the jack, if that makes sense. So there were times and then most of this black wire here is just power. So this is just a standard daisy chain kind of thing, daisy chained through all of them and attached it to power sources, as well as the LEDs. So the LEDs, when I put in the LEDs, I would actually just use a glue gun. So you can see all this hunks of glue behind it to keep them steady. And in some cases, I got some of these for the foot switches. These are really handy, these boards, because then you don't have to hand wire each switch. But then there was other times I maybe didn't have one of these little daughter boards, so I just did it this way. Nothing.
Are these are the same? What are those switches called again? What's the company? I forget.
These ones?
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what the company is. Those are just the 3DPT. What is it? Triple pole, double throw, 3PDT switches.
Yeah.
Just that you can buy in any effects store.
I can't remember the brand. They're really common though.
Yeah, well, some of them are the blue ones and some of them are different. I mean, it just depended what I had in my stock. These are for instance, this right here is the Naga Viper. So this is the Vero board that I used. That right there is a compressor. And that's the Vero board. And these ones I just stuck to the sides here with double-sided tape. But a lot of times I used these, and if you can see right here, they're hex. They're like a really thick nut, and you can get them in different sizes.
Get an angle on that. Where did it go? You pointed it again.
Right here, right here. These little mechs, these metal. They're like really thick nuts. They're just like posts, and you can screw into them, and so you can float your board above. They also make them out of plastic. Here's a plastic one. I'd say probably use plastic just because you're dealing with electronics. And so this, for instance, this is the TS9, and it's floating above. I think it's something. I don't know anymore. But like for instance, the TS9, some of the time the TS9. I pulled the, you don't actually have to pull them, you just have to extend the wires on the pots, and you can put the pots in directly. Again, if I redid this, it would be probably very different. I think you could stack each board vertically, and you could probably get a ton more stuff in here. So you just have to create a way to do that. So other than that, it looks like a mess, but it's really not. And I actually made this about 1.5 years ago. I recently added the Prince-O-Tone, and Brett was the one that says, "Hey man, you should post that because people probably would be interested." Turns out they were. So, but when I opened it, I didn't leave myself any documentation, so I had to relearn it, and it's not that hard. I mean, it's really not. And as you can see, you can use standard pots, but there's even littler pots. I recently got these ones for the Prince-O-Tone. They're little tiny ones.
Let's see if I can zoom in on that. You have to switch angles here.
Yeah, so right there. These little tiny ones, these are great for your pots because they're just so small. And you could get so many more things in here, so. Other than that, lots of glue, zip ties.
How'd you write on it?
Yeah, so I actually use these pens. I'll show them to you. I had to go buy some new ones because they were dried up, but they're just paint pens. They're Japanese. Uniball Signo UM-153 in gold, silver, and white. I had to buy 3 off Amazon. It wouldn't let me buy one. So it was like 3 for like $8 or something. But this stuff works pretty good. And if you ever want to take it off, you just use a little bit of acetone and just wipe. So when you're doing all your labeling, and actually the thicker one is it's just a paint pen. You can find that stuff, but that's the board. Those are my effects, and I'm sticking to them.
What's this amp you were playing through? Or that I was playing through,
you were playing through. That is a Vox Vox AC15 H1 TV, I think it's called. It's the hand-wired 50th anniversary edition. I never really used to play it, and all of a sudden, recently I started playing it and realized how good an amp it is. Yeah, so.
Single chain Sennheiser 906 into Zoom R16 because my little Scarlett interface. What's the company for that?
Focusrite?
Focusrite. My little Focusrite Scarlett. It can't be powered off my 2015 MacBook, so I had to bust out the. Boy, this thing's old now. 11 years old. Zoom R16 keeps chugging along. And then why don't you tell us about this lair that we are in?
Man cave, yeah. This is an old Japanese kura, which is a storehouse, which is fireproof. It's a fireproof shed, basically, for storing. Some people translate it as your treasure house. So when we bought our house, there happened to be on the land, so we kept it and put in power and some, toilet and a bedroom upstairs, and it's fairly soundproof-ish. I have a really wicked neighbor, so she doesn't like me no matter what, so I guess I don't really care about the noise.
Guitar lair.
Guitar layer. Well, this is about a third of the guitar, probably.
All right.
Hope that helps. Somebody else go build one.